Hello, YouTube. Welcome to the World of Football YouTube channel. I am your host for today's video, Adam Snow, and sitting across the table from me, as always, is the founder of the World of Football himself, the king of the Battlehawks Nation, or whatever they call themselves, Randy Snow. How are you today?
Caw, caw.
Ah, that's right. That's a thing they do.
We'll find out in a few weeks.
I guess so. And this week, guys, or this particular video, we're going to be giving our impressions of the XFL we are halfway through the season. So I
Yeah.
guess it's kind of a mid-season
Yep.
kind of where we stand. We did a week one impressions after the first game.
Yep.
Now here we are. We are halfway through the regular season. 5 games to go with a week of playoffs and then a championship game. So we just thought we'd check in and see where we're at. Where do you want to start?
Well, let's just start with the standings. Looking at the North, the DC Defenders are the only perfect team at 5-0. The St. Louis Battlehawks and the Seattle Sea Dragons tied for second place with 3-2 records, and the Vegas Vipers at 1-4.
That's right. We just got our first win this week. What a thrilling game. That's probably the most fun game of the weekend, in my opinion. But that might be a little biased being a Vipers fan. And our two teams play each other this week, so it's a hate week between us at the desks here.
In Vegas. We should
It'll
fly
be
out
in
to that
Vegas,
game.
but we will actually be at the Vegas Battlehawks game in St. Louis week 8. So we got 3 weeks. We'll be down there.
We'll be heading on down that way.
Yeah, that'll be fun. All right. What about the South Division?
In the South, you've got the Houston Roughnecks at 1-4.
Nope, other way around. Wow, can't even read. Can't even read standings correctly.
Houston Roughnecks at 4-1. Arlington Renegades at 3-2. San Antonio Brahmas at 1-4, and the Orlando Guardians at 0-5.
So very interesting where the teams are standing right now. Any of the teams stand out that you expected to be good, or teams you didn't expect to be good, and vice versa? Teams you expected to be bad that are bad, and then teams that are bad that you didn't expect to be bad.
Well, I expected St. Louis to be a good team, and they are. They're sitting at 3-2 right now in second place in the North. But it surprised me that DC has just been running away with things. It's they're not a team that I was expecting to be that good this year, but boy, they sure are.
Right, yeah, we were expecting probably the Roughnecks to be good. I mean, kind of hard to say because a lot of teams have shuffled players around from the last version of the XFL, but the Roughnecks were the only team to not lose a game in the last XFL. They were 4-0 going to this past weekend where they finally lost their first game.
Yep.
So I think the Roughnecks were one we expected to be good, but the Defenders, yeah, I agree, one that we weren't. A team we figured would be bad were the Orlando Guardians. For whatever reason, the Guardians just didn't seem like the kind of team that was put together well enough. And to be honest with you, I'm a little surprised that my Vegas Vipers are doing as bad as they've been doing. Not gonna lie.
Well, Luis Perez, he's looked good at times, and he's looked bad at times. I mean, the other night when they won their first game, he looked fantastic.
He looked great. Yeah.
Other games, he's looked good for maybe a half, and then they'll pull him, or he'll look really good, but for whatever reason, they just couldn't find the end zone that game. So it's been kind of up and down for Vegas.
Yep. And one team I am a little surprised at how good they've been, the Seattle Sea Dragons. They might be one of the sneaky teams going in the second half of the year, which we'll talk about in a little bit, because I have some predictions on who I think will make it to the XFL playoffs. I don't know if you're doing the same thing.
I have a prediction for who the top two teams are going to be. We'll see if we match up or not.
All right. Well, is that where you want to
go? We can. Just the fact that there's only one undefeated team and one winless team at the halfway point is a little surprising. I thought maybe things would be a little bit closer, up and down. But yeah, you've got Defenders at 5-0, Orlando at 0-5. I don't know if they're playing each other.
I think they play each other in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's what's going on.
Okay. Yeah. It's not looking good for Orlando right now, but boy, DC is really coming on strong.
I think DC is the biggest surprise. They're the team that I'm thinking, overtake the Roughnecks now as probably the best team in the league.
Yeah, it could be.
And look, I think the way things are going to shake out going into the final, I think the Defenders are going to end up going 9-1. I think the Seattle Sea Dragons will get that second spot in the North to go to the playoffs against the Defenders. They will be 8-2. I think the Battlehawks will finish up 6-4, and the Vipers will finish 2-8. In the South side, I got the Roughnecks finishing out 8-2. The Arlington Renegades making the playoffs to play the Roughnecks at 4-6. The San Antonio Brahmas to go 2-8, and the Orlando Guardians to go 1-9. I do think they will finally get that win at some point this upcoming season.
Wow, you went as far as giving them records, huh?
Yeah, and like I said, I think that my playoff matchup's going to be the Defenders versus Sea Dragons in the north,
Hmm.
and then the Roughnecks Renegades in the south. And I think we're going to end up seeing the Roughnecks Defenders in the championship game, which is also the two teams playing this week on a Monday night. A very weird and rare XFL
Yeah,
Monday night
it's our
game.
first Monday night game of the year, I think. They
Yeah.
had a couple of Thursday nights,
Yep.
but not a Monday night. So
Not Monday night, but I think that'll be an indication of what the championship game is this Monday night. So stay tuned for that, XFL fans.
I think you're right. I didn't go so far as to get the pairings and whatnot, but I do think in the end it's going to be the Defenders and the Roughnecks for the championship. At this point,
That's how
anyway.
it's looking. I think the Sea Dragons, though, are a sneaky,
Yep.
sneaky good team.
Yep.
They could upset some teams going down the stretch. They've had to overcome something I guess I didn't realize was that they've played like 5 games in 24 days. They've been playing a lot of like Sunday games and turn around and having to play Thursday, while a lot of these other teams have been playing,
Hmm.
at least getting 6 days in between games. If apparently Danucci, the quarterback for the Sea Dragons, has said that yeah, they played 5 games in 24 days, which is unheard of even in like the NFL. You just don't do that. So
Yeah.
he was kind of questioning some schedule makers, but I didn't sit down and actually do the math. I'm just going by what he said in his press conference. So,
Hmm.
but very interesting. I think the XFL up to this point, people can criticize the ratings all they want.
Right.
I'm sure they weren't going to be like world beating numbers. I mean, right now you got the March Madness tournament going on.
Sure.
You've had NBA, NHL, all that stuff is going on at the same time as a spring football league that's just restarting for the third
Right.
time. What do we expect? So ratings, I'm not too concerned with right now, but the attendances though. How about the attendance, especially for your St. Louis Battlehawks?
Yeah, they've had 2 games. The last 2 weeks, in week 4, they were playing the Arlington Renegades. It was their first home game of the season. It took them to week 4 to get their first home game. Record crowd this season 38,301, and then just this past weekend they had 35,600 or 35,868 versus the Defenders in their loss. So they're drawing well. Everybody knew they would because St. Louis was just dying for a team. They didn't care if it was USFL, XFL, whatever. They just wanted a team to play in that dome, and
St.
they got
Louis,
one.
not Vegas.
I'm sorry, St. Louis. So you knew they were going to show up.
Yeah.
The very first week, San Antonio in their first game, which is another city that's never had an NFL team. They had a USFL team, the San Antonio Gunslingers, way back in the '80s. They drew over 24,000 in week 1. So that kind of goes without saying. And some of these other cities where they've got NFL teams like Seattle or DC, they're not going to draw as well with an XFL team. But um, some of the other teams, yeah, are drawing pretty good. But the games have been entertaining. The ratings not the greatest on TV, the attendance average, but the games have been entertaining. We've watched a good number of them, and they've been somewhat close. Some were blowouts, but competitive at times.
I think
So a lot of fun to watch.
You're seeing a lot of great individual players, come out of these games. You've made a note of a few. I am particularly fond of Danucci, the quarterback of
Yep.
the Sea Dragons, and he's got a great pair of receivers. Josh Gordon has been great at times, and then they got another guy on the receiving core there whose name is slipping my brain right here at the top of my head, but. So they got a couple of great wide receivers there in
Yep.
Seattle for people to look at. The returner for the Battlehawks, who had that really nice return this past weekend.
Can't remember his name.
Yep. Probably a highlight rolling across the screen right now. But yeah, so there's a lot of good players in this league. It's just a matter of will this be enough tape for them to get? So I'm sure we'll see quite a few of these guys end up at least on a practice squad, if
Right.
not at least in
Yep.
some of the
Getting a look.
training camp for NFL teams.
Yep. Now, the names that I wrote down as far as emerging stars that I feel are coming out of the XFL right now, again, like you said, Seattle quarterback Ben DiNucci. I've got St. Louis quarterback A.J. McCarron. He's looked really good at times. He's looked not quite so good at other times, but I still think he's doing a really decent job this year. And based on his performance this last week, DC running back Abram Smith, he had 3 touchdowns rushing, one of 5 yards, one of 62 yards, and one of 70 yards. So great performance there, and I just see him getting better as the second half of the season goes along. And then St. Louis wide receiver Hakeem Butler, number 88. This guy's huge.
Great
And
story,
He's
too.
out jumping people, and he's making a name for himself too.
Yeah, great story with him. I think sliding in the DMs of one of the coaches to try to get a tryout with the team, and here he is being a stud. Yeah, my player was Jacor Pearson for the Sea Dragons, a wide
Okay.
receiver. He's been one of my favorite players in the league so far. So
Okay.
yep. But yeah, so the XFL, I think has been pretty good football.
Mhm.
I think they've eased a lot of our criticisms early on, where some of the broadcasting guys, the sideline reporters getting in
Yep.
players' face.
Yep.
I think they've toned it down enough to where it's tolerable.
Right.
It's not as egregious as I first saw when
Right.
it started up. But so they've cleaned that up. The replay is still some of the best stuff they're doing
Yeah.
right now.
Yep.
I love the transparency to an extent. I wish they would pull back. And there's times where they're not even having the replay guys call certain plays. I'm like, why aren't they reviewing that? Why are they leaving that to a? There was a couple weeks ago. There was a challenge like that where a coach had to call the challenge instead of the booth people or
Right.
the
Yeah.
review guys. So a little stuff to clean up here and there, but I think overall as a product, I think it's great. Is it getting the numbers it probably you would like to see? Probably
No.
not. Attendance though, in a couple of those cities, St. Louis, I think Washington or DC there been doing great with their attendance. San Antonio having a great first week. I think it's kind of cooled off a little bit about the
Right.
regular range of
Yeah.
attendance we were expecting. Vegas has got the weakest attendance, it seems like. So
Yeah, well, I think if San Antonio was winning some more games, they'd be pulling more people in.
maybe, but I
1
mean,
in 4, people don't want to go watch a losing team, so
maybe.
we'll see what
So
happens there.
yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how the rest of the season shakes out. What do you guys think? What are your impressions of the XFL halfway through the season? And with 5 weeks to go, who are your betting favorites to go to the championship game? There's a big question. Anything else from you?
No, championship game is set for May 3rd
Okay, that sounds
in
about
San
right.
Antonio, and we'll see. Will it be the Defenders and the Roughnecks?
That's probably the betting favorite, but I'm sure the Sea Dragons will at least get their
And
name in there.
and don't pass on St. Louis either.
I'm gonna pass on St. Louis just
What?
because of you.
My
sitting across them.
Battlehawks?
You're Battlehawks. All right,
Hater.
guys. That's been it for this week's video. What do you guys think? Like I said, leave all your comments down below. It's been a while since we've had to do this, so I'm following. Oh,
I
there
wrote
we
this
go.
down. Like, subscribe, hit the bell notification, leave us a comment. We also have a podcast that we do every
That's
week.
right. We do have a podcast this week in the world of football. This past week, we had our 288th episode. Talked about a lot of different football stuff there. We're actually pre-recording this before that podcast happens. So you'll see the fancy little graphic there with a couple of the big things we talked about this week and the history lesson, which is also a video you'll probably be able to find at this point too. The history of the UFL or the United Football League. Randy did this week.
Yeah,
Great video.
We've been getting into video history lessons as well. I mean, it's on the audio podcast, and then we do a video also. So yeah, it's something we're experimenting with right now is video history lessons.
Yep, and you guys have been, a lot of you guys have been coming around. We appreciate your feedback. A lot interacting with a lot of you guys. It doesn't matter what team we all root for. All that matters is we all love this game of football, and we can share it with everybody out there. Anything else before we turn the video cameras
No,
off?
we're good.
All right, guys, and we'll see you next time.